Haroon and the fish he freed, a Buddhist story of karma, memory and the sea. The sea breeze that night was strange. It wasn't cold, but it made one's heart shrink. Haroon sat motionless on the last stone step, at the edge where land and sea blurred into the night. The wind clung to him like a mad mother shaking her frozen child in the snow, frantic, desperate, silent. But Haroon was not dead, at least not physically. What was slowly rotting inside him was his pride. If you come back without a fish today, don't bother coming home. Saba's words his wife stabbed deep into the back of his neck like thorns. Haroon was a fisherman, but for more than 20 days, his nets hadn't caught a single fish. And nothing hurt more than the look in his wife's eyes each time he returned empty-handed, hands unstained by fish blood, unsalted by the sea, carrying only the stench of failure. Their rickety wooden shack, barely standing on the shoreline like a scrape on the earth's skin, shook each night in the wind as if it were about to be torn apart. But the greater collapse wasn't out there, it was in Saba's eyes. Tonight, she didn't smash a plate. She didn't sigh either. She simply sat, her back to Haroon, and whispered a chilling sentence. "I've thought it through. If you come home empty-handed tomorrow, I'll leave. No yelling. No tears. Not even hope." Her words sounded like the sea running dry, painful in a cold, quiet way. Haroon didn't respond. Not because he didn't want to, but because he had no words left to shield himself. All he had left was silence and the hunger gnawing at him from morning till night. He walked out, not toward the sea, but to escape the feeling of being a useless man. On his way, he stopped at Shiraz's house, the most successful, wealthiest fisherman in the village. As soon as the door opened, Haroon quietly said, "Brother Shiraz, we have nothing left to eat at home. Could you spare a fish? Just one. I'll repay you double when I catch something." Shiraz smirked. "You pay double? You haven't caught a single fish in a month. What'll you pay with dreams?" The door slammed shut like the final period at the end of Trust. Haroon walked on, hollow inside. The moonlight cast upon his back like the pitying gaze of a weary god, tired of hearing unanswered prayers. No one wants to lend hope to the hopeless. He returned to the sea, the only place still willing to listen to his cries. If you're still watching this video and want to know what awaits Haroon next, comment the number 1 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend subscribing and turning on the bell so you don't miss any of our videos. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content to inform and inspire. Haroon knelt before the waves. The freezing water reached his knees. "Dear God, dear Allah, if I still deserve to live, please give me a way out. Not for me, but for her. I don't want to lose her." There was no divine light. No angel. Only an old man stepping out of the mist quietly, as if he were a part of the sea's soul. His robe was tattered, his feet bare, but his eyes shone like oil lamps in an ancient temple. "Young man," the elder called. "It's not good to sit here too long. The night sea is no place for the hopeless." Haroon didn't turn around. The old man stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder, gentle as a blessing. "Are you hungry?" Haroon nodded softly. His eyes never left the tireless waves. "All right. Come with me." In a tiny hut near the rocks, the old man lit a fire and handed Haroon a bowl of cold rice and a few pieces of old bread. Haroon took them, eyes wet. In that moment, he didn't feel like a failure, he felt human. Just a person being given food, not mocked, not humiliated. "What's your name, sir?" Haroon asked after a long silence. "Call me Baba," The man smiled. I used to be a fisherman like you. But one day, I realized, there are things worth keeping more than fish. Haroon looked up. What things? Conscience, Baba said. When Haroon returned home, Saba was asleep. He gently placed the remaining rice in front of her. She didn't open her eyes, but her hand reached out and touched the bowl instinctively. Haroon lay down on the floor, his heart heavy like a stone in the sea. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he knew if he didn't return with a fish by morning, he'd lose everything. Only the sea hadn't abandoned him yet. But the sea has a heart that's hard to please. At the break of dawn, a thin mist veiled the ocean like a bride's silk scarf left behind without a goodbye. The waves still rolled, but something had changed within Haroon. He stepped slowly out of the wooden shack, like a condemned man walking to the gallows, not crying, not resisting, only hoping for a miracle in the final moment. Today, either I come back with fish, or I don't come back at all. Meanwhile, Saba slept or pretended to. From under the blanket, she heard Haroon's footsteps, heard the wooden door close softly, and silence. She didn't see him off, didn't say goodbye, didn't stop him. Because in her heart, this voyage was the final voyage of their marriage. Haroon walked to his small boat. Once his greatest treasure and pride, now the hull was worn, the paint peeling, the bottom lined with cracks just like his heart. He pushed the boat into the sea, his hands trembling from the cold, his soul shaking from fear. Not fear of dying but of living without someone to live for. Please, just give me one last chance. The wind didn't answer. Neither did the waves. Haroon rode into deep waters, the place he always avoided. The currents were strong, rocks hidden below, and sometimes, even sharks. But today, he didn't care. He was ready to risk his life if that's what it took to keep a woman. He cast his net. Each knot on the net felt like a cut in his heart. Every time he pulled it up, it was another disappointment. Time crawled. The sun began to pour over the water like hot honey, burning Haroon's back. His shirt soaked, hands blistered. But the net remained empty. Is the sea punishing me? Or am I casting nets into nothingness? Near noon, a large boat glided by. Haroon looked up. It was Shiraz. He stood tall on the deck like a king of the sea, hauling in a net full of fish, tuna, mackerel, red snapper, and a giant silver fish gleaming in the sunlight. Shiraz saw Haroon. He said nothing, just raised the big fish high as if to flaunt his victory. No words were needed. Shiraz's eyes said it all. See? Someone caught fish. Just not you. Haroon looked at the fish, then back at his torn net. The wind blew again, this time not cold, but scorching. Haroon began to ask himself, what did I do wrong? I tried. I stayed up all night. I knelt before the sea. I went hungry. Why is everything still? Nothing. He remembered Baba's words. There are things more worth holding onto than fish. But without fish, what could he possibly hold onto? Haroon slumped down, his head touching the side of the boat. He began to cry, not loudly. Just silent tears soaking into the worn fabric of a man unraveling. At that exact moment, his net moved. A slight tremble. Then stronger. Then, a powerful tug, like something massive was thrashing inside. Haroon jumped to his feet. His heart pounded like a festival drum. He pulled the net, his hands trembling, his heart quivering, and inside the net was a mother fish, larger than any he'd ever seen, and a swarm of baby fish writhing around her. The entire boat seemed to glow. not with sunlight, but with hope. And then, Haroon froze. His eyes met the mother fish's. They weren't the eyes of an ordinary fish. They were a mother's eyes. Eyes of one about to lose her children. He heard the splash of the sea. Soft. Yet it felt like a cry. No one had ever told him that fish could cry. But in that moment, Haroon believed they really were. If I take this fish today, I'll have food. Money. I might keep my wife. I might be able to call myself a man. But if I let it go, I'll lose everything. But at least I can sleep without seeing a monster in the mirror. If you're still watching this video and you were Haroon, what would you do? Please comment 2 below if you would release the mother fish with her children. Comment 4 if you have another choice. Let us know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed, we recommend you hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss any videos. Your support helps us keep creating meaningful content to inform and inspire you. Haroon let go. The mother fish dropped into the sea, wrapped her body around her young, turned back and said nothing. But Haroon heard a whisper deep within. You are still human. After releasing the mother fish and her children, Haroon sat motionless in the boat. The sun was high now, scorching his shoulders, but Haroon felt nothing. He had just thrown away his only chance to save his marriage, his honor, and maybe his entire life. But his chest felt lighter than it ever had. If I die today, at least I won't die in shame. He whispered it to the waves, then leaned back against the boat's side, eyes closed. Not asleep, just too tired to keep them open. Then, clink. A soft sound, like a seashell tapping against the hull. Haroon opened his eyes. Right beside the boat, the sea shimmered like silk. Then, a creature surfaced. It was the mother fish. But this time, she had not come to plead, or to say goodbye. In her mouth something gleamed. A small piece of gold, thumb-sized, crescent-shaped like a broken half-moon. Haroon's eyes widened in disbelief. He reached out, and the fish gently dropped the gold into his palm, then slipped away beneath the surface without a sound. Haroon sat in stunned silence. What was this? A reward? A blessing? Or a gentle punishment? For one fleeting moment, he saw the image of the mother fish in his mind, but not in the ocean. It was in another realm, where the light of compassion shone, where every living being had a soul, had pain, had maternal love no different from humans. Haroon whispered, like a vow. Dear God, if this is real, then I have witnessed something sacred. He turned the boat homeward. The wind that day was soft, stroking his hair like a mother's hand. No longer heavy like the wind before. No longer desperate. Only peaceful, something only those who let go of greed at the right moment ever truly feel. Back home. Silence. The door was ajar. Inside empty. Haroon called gently. Saba. No response. He walked in. The bedroom, no suitcase, no clothes. Even the scarf Saba always wore gone from the hook. All that remained was a quiet corner and a cold bed. Haroon understood. She had left. She didn't wait to say goodbye. She didn't care whether he brought back a fish or not. Because, in truth, to her he was just a temporary condition for living. Nothing more. Haroon collapsed on the floor. The gold piece slipped from his hand, rolled across the ground, and let out a faint clink, almost mocking. He picked it up, stared at it. To her, I was a net worthless if it caught nothing. But to that fish, what was I? A savior. Someone who knew when to let go. A human being. He went to the market and quietly sold the gold. No one asked where it came from. Its value was enough to feed him for a month. But Haroon didn't feel joy. Didn't even smile once. Because deep down, he knew. What he lost today wasn't just a wife. It was an illusion. The illusion that love can be secured with money. The illusion that sacrifice will always be repaid by people instead of by the universe. That night, Haroon didn't return home. He sat by the sea where Baba had fed him for the first time, and where Saba had last belonged in his life. He spoke to the sea this time, without tears. Ocean. I'm not hungry today. But I'm still empty. A small wave lapped against the rocks soft, like a hand on his shoulder. And Haroon realized. He may have lost the woman he once loved. But he had kept his dignity. And dignity is the one thing no ocean can ever wash away. That night, the sea was still. No wind blew. The sky was covered in gray clouds, like a mourning veil for things that had been lost. Haroon sat outside his small hut, knees drawn to his chest, eyes open but seeing nothing in particular. A week had passed since Saba left. The silence in the house was so thick that even the clink of a spoon against a bowl startled him. The absence of a woman didn't make the house physically smaller, but it made the world inside him shrink tiny, like a grain of sand blown away by the wind, lost in the vastness. That piece of gold had been used to buy food, repair the roof, and pay off the debt at the local shop. Everything should have felt lighter. But it didn't. Money without someone to share it with turns every coin into a thorn that pierces your hand. And he realized life is not just about being alive. It's about what gives life meaning. Each day, Haroon returned to the sea. Not to fish, but to watch. He no longer carried nets, no longer dragged his worn-out boat. He simply sat quietly on a rocky ledge where the waves turned white like Baba's hair. He started to observe. Seabirds returning to their nests. Tiny fish swimming with the current. Waves crashing against the rocks and then retreating, never complaining. Every movement had a reason. Every creature lived true to its nature, asking for nothing more, putting on no masks, casting no judgments. Only humans live one way and think another. Baba returned as if he had never left. His back was more hunched, but his eyes still glowed like lanterns at the end of a tunnel. "Have you learned anything from the sea yet?" he asked, as Haroon watched the sunset. "I'm not sure. But I do know I'm no longer afraid of hunger." "Oh." Baba chuckled. "That's unusual. People usually stop fearing hunger when they're dead." Haroon looked at him for the first time, smiling truly after many months. "I'm still alive. But something inside me feels like it has died." "No," Baba shook his head gently. "It hasn't died. It's only shed its skin." He told Haroon an old tale. Once, a monk entered a deep forest, bringing nothing but a walking stick. He was chased by wild animals, bitten by mosquitoes, and frozen by the cold. Someone asked him, "Why didn't you bring fire, water, or rice?" The monk replied, "Because I didn't come here to survive. I came to find out who I am when I'm all alone." Haroon bowed his head, and it felt like someone had tapped gently on his heart. A clear sound rang out deep within. That night, Haroon returned home. He opened the wardrobe, the one Saba once used for her clothes and her everyday dreams. Now, there were only a few old pieces of cloth and a small slip of paper that fell from between the shelves. The paper was old, the handwriting slanted. Haroon. I used to think that as long as you brought home fish, it would be enough. But now I know, I needed someone who made me feel I wasn't alone. When I was hungry you were hungry. When I was sad you were silent. When I was scared you turned away. Maybe you're a good man. But I'm not strong enough to live with someone who only knows how to endure. I'm sorry. Saba. Haroon read it again. And again. Then he burned it. The paper crumbled to ash in his palm like a ritual to end an old life. He didn't feel anger. He didn't cry. Because he understood sometimes, the one who leaves isn't necessarily cruel. They simply no longer have the strength to stay with someone who's lost themselves. And that very night, for the first time in weeks, Haroon brought his net back to the sea. Not to catch fish, but to ask himself, can I still love this craft, without fearing that it will leave me starving? And the sea replied with waves. Not fish. That night, Haroon fell asleep to the gentle sound of waves, not inside his home, but right there on the rocky shore where he always sat watching the sea. The night breeze brushed his cheek like the hand of a mother long gone. The silver moonlight lit the calm sea like a mirror waiting for someone to peer into it. And Haroon dreamed. Not the ordinary kind of dream. This one was vivid like daylight. So vivid that Haroon wasn't sure if he was asleep or walking into another layer of reality. He stood in shallow water. The sea wasn't deep, but its surface reflected not the sky but memories. He saw himself in the old boat, hands gripping the net, and then, the mother fish, her babies flailing, his heart pounding in his chest. He saw the moment he let go. The mother fish falling back, water sparkling like crystals. And then, from the surface, a figure emerged. It was a woman. But, not entirely. Her lower half was a fish's tail, graceful like a living stream, covered in fine silver scales. Her upper body was human, a face both strange and familiar, eyes that once left him breathless, the very same eyes of the mother fish that day. She didn't speak, but Haroon heard her clearly in his mind. You chose mercy. You chose loss instead of blood-earned gain. And so, you are allowed to see me. Haroon bowed his head, feeling like a child. I am part of the sea. But also part of karma. Her voice was deep, like ancient sutras echoing through sacred caves. The sea does not reward. Karma does not reward. But, your heart stirred mine. Haroon trembled, asking, why did you come back? Why did you give me the gold? Because compassion never dies. Even when buried deep in suffering, it still shines like a pearl in the mud. And when you let compassion guide you instead of greed, you didn't just save me. You saved the part of yourself that was dying. She reached out her hand, a human arm, slender, with a small cut on her wrist. The blood didn't flow, but it shimmered like fire. How many people cast their nets without thinking of the lives beneath them? How many believe they have the right to take everything just because they're hungry? You, Haroon, chose to stay hungry rather than feed on blood. Suddenly, the wind rose. The sea around him surged, and each wave transformed into a face ghostly fish spirits, creatures once killed without reason. They did not accuse. They only looked. A gaze that pierced the spine, not from hatred, but from remembrance. Live as if there is no next forgiveness. Fish as if each one is a child. And remember, karma does not punish. It only reveals what you once tried to hide. Haroon looked up. The mermaid was dissolving into water, like morning mist. But before she vanished, she placed something in his hand. A piece of old net, the very one from the day he released the mother fish. "Keep this. When you forget your heart, this net will remind you." And she disappeared. Haroon jolted awake. His hand was wet. Not from sweat, but because he was truly holding a piece of damp net still smelling of sea salt. He stood, staring into the distance. The waves still rolled. The sea was unchanged. But he was no longer the same man. 3 days after the dream of the mermaid, the sky broke into rain. Not the gentle rain the fishing village was used to, but a violent storm, thunder crashing like the drums of an invisible trial, where forgotten souls rose to reclaim justice. Haroon didn't hide inside. He stepped out into the storm. His cloak drenched, hair wild, but his eyes unblinking. He climbed the highest rock ledge facing the sea and a steep cliff in the distance where no one ever dared to tread. But today, someone was there. Through the sheets of rain, lit by lightning, stood a lone figure, a woman motionless at the edge of the cliff. Long hair, dark cloak, no umbrella, no fear, no movement. Just standing, staring out to sea. Haroon's first thought: a ghost? Or a hallucination? But the next flash of lightning confirmed she was real. Without knowing why, Haroon began walking toward her. Rain lashed his face like leather whips, wind howled in his ears, but still he went. Each step on the slippery rocks was a defiance of survival instinct. But something in him felt drawn to her as if she were a fragment of a memory he had lost long ago. When he was about 10 steps away, Haroon called out, "Hey, it's pouring. You shouldn't be standing there." The woman didn't turn around. Her voice drifted to him soft as mist, yet echoing strangely amid the storm. "Have you ever been abandoned?" A question that seemed unrelated. Or maybe, too deeply related. Haroon clenched his fists. His heart ached. "Yes," he said. "My wife left me." The woman smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "My mother left me on this very cliff. I've been standing here, waiting for her to come back." Haroon stood frozen. The woman, now visible, looked about 30. But her eyes were those of a child who never grew up. She said she would come back. But the sea was too big. And I was as small as a grain of sand in the palm of the waves. Her story sounded like it was told not by her, but by the wind itself, a sorrowful sutra for the forgotten souls swept away by indifference. Haroon asked, "Where do you live?" "I live in every place where people forget each other." Haroon felt a chill inside. Not from the rain, but from something in his memory rising to the surface. He remembered once as a boy his mother left him to wait at the fish market. She disappeared for the entire morning. He had sat there, trembling, not daring to cry aloud. Because he believed if he cried, she might never come back. "I was abandoned too," he whispered. "And I thought I had moved on. But in truth, I only buried the wound under sand. It never really healed." The woman turned around for the first time. In the lightning's glare, her face was not just one face. It was many layered over one another. His mother's, his wife's, and all the women who had ever left Haroon without a word. "You were never abandoned," she said. "They just didn't know how to stay. When you stayed too silent." A lightning bolt struck nearby. The wind howled. The woman swayed on the brink of falling. Haroon lunged forward to grab her. But his hands passed through air. She had vanished. Haroon knelt on the cliffside, not knowing who to call out to. He only knew one thing. He was no longer afraid of being abandoned. Because now he understood being abandoned doesn't cause as much loss as the decision to stop loving oneself afterward. That night, Haroon returned home. He dried his hair, cooked a simple bowl of porridge, and placed 2 pairs of chopsticks on the table. Not because he expected Saba to return, but because he had accepted that there would always be a part of him, the abandoned child, still waiting on that cliff. And tonight, he would eat with that child. Not let it go hungry. Not let it be alone again. The next morning, Haroon rose early. Before even a sliver of sunlight crept over the horizon, he quietly tidied the corner of his home and brought the old net out behind the kitchen shed. The very net he had received from the dream about the mermaid. He had never examined it closely. But that morning, as a pale beam of light passed through the crack in the door, he noticed a streak of reddish-brown, faded, but unmistakable blood. He touched it, stiff and dry. The blood was old, but it clung to the knots of the net like a stain that refused to leave. A chill ran up his spine. Haroon swallowed hard. I've never killed anything with this net, so whose blood is this? A disturbing thought flickered through his mind. That afternoon, in the fish market, a rumor spread like wildfire. A child is missing. His name is Faiz, 7 years old. They found his little sandals near the edge of the sea. No one knows what happened. The fishing village was small, and bad news moved like dry grass catching fire. Haroon froze. A child? The sea? Dried blood? No, it can't be. But the net lay there still, silent as if waiting to be questioned. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat alone at his doorstep, the net resting on his lap, his eyes fixed on the pitch-black sea. The wind howled like the voices of 100 souls trying to break through. Haroon began to remember. The night he released the mother fish and received the gold was exactly 3 days after a massive wave crashed ashore. The same night little Faiz disappeared. No, it can't be the same night. This can't have anything to do with me. But instincts don't lie. And that night Haroon dreamed. In the dream, he saw the sea again. But it wasn't a normal sea. It was a flooded graveyard. Figures floated, neither fish nor human, but broken, blurry spirits like souls torn apart by waves and clumsily stitched back together. One of them was a child. It didn't speak. It only pointed its tiny, cold hand straight at him. At the net. Haroon woke in a sweat, his hands trembling uncontrollably. He ran behind the house, grabbed the net, and rushed to the shore. Speak, he shouted at the waves. Who has this net trapped before? There was no reply. Only the faint sound of a child crying in the wind. Very soft. But enough to freeze Haroon's heart. The next morning, Haroon brought the net to Baba. The old man stared at it, eyes deep in thought. You found this after a dream? Yes, a very real dream. Then you must understand this is no ordinary net. This is a karmic net. Haroon blinked, stunned. Baba continued. Karma isn't just what we do. It's also what we inherit. Some karmic threads aren't ours to begin with. But we're still the ones who must unravel them. This net may have once been a tool of killing. Perhaps it wrongfully took the life of a mother fish. Perhaps it trapped a child swallowed by the sea. Haroon fell to his knees. His knees hit the cold sand, and tears burst from his eyes. I didn't know. I never meant to hurt anyone. Baba placed a hand on his shoulder. No one is born a killer, but only those who dare to face their own nets. Have the courage to keep on living. That night, Haroon went to the sea. He brought the net onto a boat and let it drift. But before he let go, he whispered, "If any soul has ever been trapped by this net, please, go free. I'm sorry. And from today onward, my net will only be used to save, not to kill." A gust of wind swept through. The net flew from his hands, as if taken by invisible arms. In the distance, through the mist, the sound of a child's laughter echoed, unclear whether it was the waves, or a thank you. A week passed since Haroon released the net to the sea. No more strange dreams. No more children crying in the wind. Only a peculiar stillness. As if a silent storm had passed through his heart. He began to fish again. But it was no longer the same. Every morning, Haroon still went to the sea. But he no longer cast his net like a starving man. He did so like someone chosen, not someone trying to choose. He let the net down slowly, quietly. And when he pulled it back, if any fish was too small, he would let it go. If a fish carried eggs, he would release it as well. Neighbors called him the crazy guy since his wife left. They laughed and said, "You living off morals now. Compassion doesn't cook your rice." Haroon never responded. He only smiled. A smile no longer bitter like strands of seaweed drifting with the current, not resisting, not striving, simply living. One day, he pulled in a large silverfish. But its body was covered in cuts, clearly just escaped from another net. Its eyes were swollen red, gills torn, struggling weakly. Haroon didn't hesitate. He placed his hand on the fish's body, whispering like a prayer. Not everyone caught in a net deserves to be held. Some souls are simply lost. Then he opened the net and released it. As it fell into the water, it didn't swim away immediately. It turned its head to look at Haroon. A gaze not of hate, not of gratitude, but simply, two living beings acknowledging each other's survival. That afternoon, Baba returned. He sat beside Haroon on the stone steps, saying nothing for a long while. Only when the sunset burned across the sea like glowing embers did he speak. In the old days, catching a fish meant life. Today sometimes catching one means death. Haroon nodded. "I no longer measure success by how many fish I catch." "Then how do you measure it?" Baba asked. "By how many times I can let go, and feel no regret." Baba laughed, a rich laugh like waves striking the backs of lonely rocks. "Then you've found the answer I've always waited for." "What is it?" Haroon asked. "Nets are cast to choose, not to force. And humans must learn to let go of what isn't theirs, just as fish were never meant to belong to land." That night, Haroon went home and opened an old notebook. The one he used to log the best catch days, the highest selling prices. He flipped to the first blank page. And wrote, "Today, caught no fish. But saw my own eyes reflected in the gaze of a wounded creature. Lost a fish. Kept the man." Then he closed the notebook. That night, Haroon dreamed. No mermaids. No children. Only a net drifting in the sea. Light filtering through each knot of the mesh. And in each of those knots, a face. Not just anyone's, his own. But every time he looked through a different knot, the face changed. Sometimes angry. Sometimes crying. Sometimes laughing. And in one knot he was nothing at all. Only light. When he woke, Haroon understood. Humans don't need to keep everything. They only need to know what to hold onto and what to release. The sea that morning was calmer than usual. No waves. No wind. Haroon sat on the sand, toying with pebbles, heart still as the surface of the water. But then something appeared in his line of sight that made him freeze. A child sat only a few steps away. Bare-skinned, hair tangled, back turned to Haroon. The boy used a piece of charcoal to draw black circles in the sand. One after another, nested together, unbroken. Each circle seemed to have its own rhythm. As if he wasn't drawing with his hand, but with a memory far older than speech. Haroon slowly stepped forward. "Hey there, are you lost? Where's your home?" The boy didn't turn around, but spoke. Clear, slow, and in a voice that sent a chill down Haroon's spine. "I know you. In a past life, you didn't spare me. In this life, I returned to draw the circles." Haroon stood frozen. His heart nearly stopped. What did you say? You used to cast nets. You caught fish. One of them was my mother. I am not human. I am the residue of forgotten killings. The wind picked up not cold, but warm. The smell of burning sand and decaying wood filled Haroon's nose. As if he had stepped into an ancient ritual, where guilt was thrown into flames, and unborn children ascended in smoke. Haroon dropped to his knees. "If what you say is true, then I'm sorry. But I don't remember. I never meant to hurt anyone." The boy drew another circle larger, deeper. "Memory is not required. Karma doesn't ask what you recall. It asks, what will you do now?" At that moment, the sea began to glow. Not from sunlight, but from beneath the water where dozens of fish, large and small, swam in spirals. Each one lifted its head to gaze at Haroon. Their eyes held no blame, no accusations. Only the quiet expectancy of a soul awaiting an answer. The boy stood up. Sand fell from his body, revealing feet that didn't touch the ground. "Each fish you spare erases one circle I've drawn. But many still remain. If you truly want it to end, teach others to let go of their nets. Not through words, but by the way you live." Then the boy walked into the sea. He wasn't soaked. He wasn't pulled by the tide. He simply faded into the water like mist, as if he had never existed. Only the charcoal circles remained in the sand, intact. But when Haroon touched them, they spiraled down into the earth, disappearing silently. That night, Haroon took out his old journal. But this time, he didn't write anything. He drew a circle. A perfect, gentle circle using a pencil worn to the nub. In the center, he wrote 2 words. Rebirth. The next morning, Haroon walked around the village. He didn't buy fish. He didn't try to sell nets. He simply sat with other fishermen and told them a story. About a dream. About a boy who drew circles in the sand. About fish who knew how to look humans in the eye. They laughed. Some called him mad. But one young boy, Imran, 16 years old, stayed the longest. He asked, "Will you teach me how to fish, without killing?" And Haroon nodded. For the first time in years, he felt the ocean no longer resisted him. That morning, Haroon went to the sea as usual. But instead of boarding a boat, he walked along the shoreline carrying a small pouch of dry bread and a flask of water. No net. No rod. No goal. Just to walk beside the sea. Near midday, he spotted a strange glimmer beneath the sun's light. As he moved closer, Haroon froze. A white dolphin was stranded. Its body covered in sand, skin torn in places, breath short. Its eyes wide, not panicked, just watching. That gaze, Haroon had seen it before. Not in this life, but in a dream, of the mermaid, the boy who drew circles, and the silent stares of forgotten creatures. He knelt down. No hesitation. No fear. Using his hands, then his whole body, he dug a narrow trench, pushing the dolphin slowly back toward the tide. Sweat soaked his shirt. Sand clung to his skin. More than once, he nearly collapsed. But the dolphin never looked away. As if whispering silently, "Keep going, we're almost there." At last, a powerful wave surged forward, dragging the dolphin with it, freeing it into deeper water. But it didn't swim away right away. It circled once, then dove beneath the surface. That night, Haroon fell asleep by the window. The wind soft, the moon shining on the cold earth like glass. And he dreamed. In the dream, he stood in the heart of the ocean. But he wasn't drowning. Around him were columns of white light, sparkling like living crystal. At the center stood a door of pearl. No handle. No lock. It didn't need to open. The white dolphin swam toward him, now in the form of a woman. He couldn't tell if she was the mermaid, Saba, or simply the conscience he had buried long ago. Her voice echoed. "This is the door. It doesn't open with force, but with the return of what was never yours to keep." Haroon didn't enter. He only stood there, gazing. Because he knew. This wasn't a door to go through, but a door to see through. To the self on the other side. And he saw a Haroon with no net in hand. No callous. No shadow of Saba. Just a man, sitting by the shore, smiling gently at the sun itself. He woke up. Not afraid. Not joyful. Just at peace. The sun was rising. Waves gently lapped the shore. On the sand no footprints but his own. Haroon stepped outside, poured himself a glass of water, and for the first time, set down a second glass beside it. Not for anyone in particular. Just in case. Some wandering soul might know someone was still waiting. A child ran past, laughing. "Uncle Haroon, did you catch any fish today?" Haroon smiled, gently shook his head. "No. But today, I saw a door." The boy blinked, confused. Then ran off, laughing. Sand kicked up. Waves rolled in. The sea said nothing. But the wind brushed past Haroon's ear, whispering, "Don't be afraid. Some doors only open when you dare not walk through them." And the story ends there. Not as a conclusion, but as a moment to set the pen down, and let the rest belong to the sea. If you're still watching this video and want to continue following Haroon's journey in the next chapter, please comment 99 below to let us know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we highly recommend you do and turn on the bell, so you won't miss any future videos. Your support helps us continue creating stories that inform, inspire, and uplift. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share one thing this story taught you, and how you'll carry that into your life. Your voice matters. Reading your reflections brings strength, healing, and inspiration to us all. If this story moved your heart, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue crafting stories that awaken the soul. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you in the next video.